Hello all. In this video, we'll be understanding about the role of Ministry of Finance in taxation and various budget documents. All right. So, what role that Finance Ministry plays with respect to taxation, and what are the key budget documents? So, there are certain documents, around 10 to 11 documents we have. In that, we have 2 to 3 important budget documents which we have to keep in our mind in order to answer any type of questions in the examination. So, as you know, role of finance ministry. Finance ministry is very important for any nation for that matter. In our country, finance ministry, especially under finance ministry, we have a department called Department of Economic Affairs. Under Department of Economic Affairs, we have something called budget division, and this budget division is responsible to frame all these 11 budget documents and get it approved. All right. So now we'll try to understand what are the key budget documents that we have in our nation, which speaks about our money, that is tax amount that we have paid to the government and how they are utilizing it. Received and expenditure. Correct. So revenue and expenditure. So that is the reason we have something called revenue budget and expenditure budget. Government has two kinds of budget. All right. So here next, see, these are the important articles which we have to focus on. Article 109, 110, 112, 114 are very important articles which we have to keep in our mind, which speaks about money bill, finance bill, annual financial statement. Article 112, annual financial statement. One not 9 and 110 speaks about money bill and finance bill. Very important set of articles. Next, revenue budget. We have two types of budget as we discussed: revenue budget and capital budget. And government budget is divided into revenue budget and capital budget. This is the formula. GB is equal to RB plus CB. And further, revenue budget is equals to revenue receipts plus revenue expenditure. Okay, capital budget is equals to capital receipts and capital expenditure. Okay, so these are the very important formula that you have to keep in your mind. Okay, so what is revenue budget, what is revenue receipts, what is revenue expenditure? So upcoming slides you will get the clarity on it. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, budget document or government budget is broadly divided into revenue budget and capital budget. As we discussed, revenue budget is further divided into revenue receipts and capital. So revenue expenditure, revenue receipts and capital, revenue receipts and revenue expenditure, revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. And what do you mean by revenue receipts? Those receipts that is coming from tax revenue or non-tax revenue. Tax revenue means you have direct tax, indirect tax. Non-tax revenue means government is running some company, or it is running some business. For example, transportation, government transportation, it is earning. So non-tax revenue is not earning, is not coming as a part of tax, but still government is getting the amount, that is non-tax revenue receipts. Capital budget further divided into capital receipts and capital expenditure. Capital receipts and capital expenditure, very important. All right, so next, so further in detail division of revenue receipts and capital receipts. So revenue receipts, as we discussed, revenue receipts are further divided into tax revenue. Tax on what form? For example, income tax, corporation tax, GST, custom duty, excise duty, all these things we have to keep in our mind, that all these things are revenue which is being earned as a part of tax, right? Next, interest received, that is non-tax revenue. It is interest receipts. Interest received, for example, you have rendered some loans, you are receiving the interest for it. That is not tax, but still you are getting the amount. That is example for non-tax revenue. Dividends, what government earns, that is also non-tax revenue example. Next, capital receipts. Capital receipts are of two types: debt creating receipts. Debt creating, it is creating liability. For example, you are borrowing certain amount from other countries, that is debt created. So that is example for capital receipts, that is specially debt receipts. On the other hand, you have non-debt receipts. What is that? Interest received. You are earning interest. It's not creating any debt, but you are getting certain amount for the nation. That is example for non-debt receipts, and that is creating capital. Capital is increasing, correct? Next, dividends received. Capital is increasing. That is also example of capital receipts, especially non-debt capital receipts. This is also called as non-debt capital receipts. Okay. So as we discussed, this is another slide which gives complete details of revenue expenditures. Revenue expenditure, on what expenditure government has. See, that is receipts. What is coming? Receipts is what is coming into the government. By this way, government is getting. As you can see, all these are the modes where government is getting the amount. Now, how it is going out? That is revenue expenditure. How it is spending through for salary, to provide salary for its employees, pension, subsidies. All these are revenue expenditure. Government is spending out. Next, capital expenditure. Capital expenditure, example, debt repayment. You have taken certain loans, you are paying it back. So that is capital expenditure. You're building roads, infrastructure, you're purchasing certain machineries. All these things are examples of capital expenditure. And capital expenditure will help for the development of the economy. As a country, we can grow if we are investing more on capital expenditure. That is also one point that we have to keep in our mind. But however, more investment without any reason affects the economy. Simple. Next. So government expenditure, broadly, these are other types of expenditure what government has on education, on health, sanitation, social security, defense. See, very important. Government expenditure, very, very important expenditure is defense. All right. Health, agriculture, transportation, power and energy, all these things are expenditure. So now our question is, we have two things: revenue incoming and expenditure outgoing. So how it is framed, how it is decided, with what documents? The answer is key documents of budget. Okay, that is the slide that we are in now. See, budget, these are the budget documents, my dear friends, which gives us the clarity about receipts and expenditure. Once again, I'm telling, all these documents gives you the clarity on our money. That is what we have given to the government, on what government is spending. Right from annual financial statement, as we discussed, Article 112, very important. It is also called as budget. See, but the word budget is not used anywhere in the Indian Constitution. The word annual financial statement is used. But however, in layman's language, we call it as budget. No one usually calls it as annual financial statement. If today's budget, budget is being discussed, if it is presented by finance minister, we won't tell annual financial statement is presented. No, but in general, we tell budget. Today, budget is being presented by the finance minister, right? So this is very important. Next, B, that is demand for grants. Demand for grants, what is that? See, central government gives certain money to the state government. And who demands whom? State government demands the central government. Okay, other one thing. And another one thing is central government giving the money to the ministries, especially ministries. Ministries are demanding demand for grants. There is finance ministry, defense ministry, ministry of defense, ministry of agriculture, ministry of women and child development. So we have so many ministries in our country, more than 40, 45, 50 ministries we have. Each ministry has come up with certain demands and gets its share from the revenue what we have. That is from Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, the money is appropriated from Consolidated Fund of India. Next, finance bill. Finance bill is very important. And in this finance bill, you get tax rates. Tax rates are determined in this finance bill. And other general other topics, other documents are number D, fiscal policy statement. That is one document. And expenditure budget, very important. Expenditure budget. This document shows how expenditure is done. What are the modes, or what is the complete detail of the expenditure of the government of this financial year? What was its previous expenditure? What is the difference and why it is making such expenditure? All those things will be explained here. And receipt budget. Receipt budget means it shows what we have received, basically from what sources we have received. You can go to the website. If you go to the finance ministry website, you will get all these details. Okay, especially website of Central Board of Direct Tax. You get all details in this year how much you received, in this year how much you received, how much you have spent. All these things you get the details. And expenditure profile, now it is not that important. It is not, you can just keep it aside. Next, this is nothing but summary of expenditure budget itself. Next, budget at a glance. This is also very important. It gives a complete structure of both receipts and expenditure. Receipts and expenditure. Next, memorandum explaining the provisions of finance bill. What finance bill says. Why we have given this tax rate. So memorandum explaining the finance bill. We have that one particular document. Next, output outcome monitoring framework. You have one, that is one document, very important. Next, key feature of budget. The entire glimpses of the all these documents will be given at K for key feature of document. Okay, so this is we have taken for 23-24 example. Okay, so next, last one is very important, L. Here, as you can see, L, implementation of budget announcement of not that year, previous year. See, this is for 23-24, 23-24. But the next document speaks about the implementation of budget announcement. In this document, the government has to explain whether it has implemented the previous announcement, whatever it has done, whatever promises it had done, whether it has implemented or not. That explanation has to be given in this document, that is implementation of budget announcement. So I hope you understood the entire A to L, A, B, C, D, F, G, up till L. These are the documents that we have with respect to what budget. And last but not the least, I would like to explain one important topic. As you can see on the screen in blue letters, that is this with respect to demand for grants. What does it tells? It tells that there are two types of demand for grants, that is voted and charged. Voted and charged means, see, voted means, see, what is demand for grants? You are asking certain amount from the government, central government. Ministries are asking from the central government. Central government has to give the money to the ministries. Now, when government is giving, central government is giving, or in the budget, whenever it is allotting in the parliament. So now you have to understand, can it allot simply? No, it has to be voted. The parliamentarians have to tell yes, whether that particular demand is genuine or is it really required. Simply they can make demand. So it has to be voted. When it is yes, they will get. If it is no, they won't get. Simple. Voted demand for grants. So next, charged demand for grants. Charged demand for grants means here there is no voting procedure, because it is mandatory required for a particular ministry. For example, defense ministry, you have to give certain crores without any discussion, without voting, you have to provide it. That is charged. No voting process is involved in this particular allotment of money. So that is charged demand for grants. So two types of demand for grants, voted and charged. Voted, vote is required, approval is required. Charged is simply you are allotting it without any voting process. So this is very important. I hope you got the clarity about the budget documents. 23-24 is an example that we have taken here. So next, see, all the explanation are provided here in the slide. And section 3 of Fiscal Policy and Budget Management Act is very important. It speaks about the maintenance of fiscal deficit of our nation. Okay. So next, these all are explanatory documents. E to L, you have to keep in your mind. All these things are supportive documents for what? A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D are the 4 important documents that you have. Other all are explanatory in nature. What in A, B, C, D you have, it is in detail explained in E to L. That's it. Simple. Okay. And very important is implementation of budget announcement of the previous year. Correct. You made some promise as a government. You have to show in the next year that yes, I have achieved. I had taken this much amount. Now I've proved it. So that is the implementation aspect. Correct. And expenditure budget has 3 wings: centrally sponsored scheme, and any transfers which is made from the finance commission's recommendation to the state government or ministries. Very important. Next, other transfers. See, these are the expenditures of the government, right? Centrally sponsored, has sponsored certain scheme that has to give money. Finance commission has told you have to transfer certain amount to the state governments. So Here, all these things are expenditure, and you find this data in expenditure budget. Receipt budget, it speaks about what are the estimates of the receipt. What is your idea of getting, how much you are expected to get through what? Through tax and non-tax receipts. Tax and non-tax receipts. Okay. Next, statement of revenue impact on impact of tax incentives. What is the impact on the revenue? When you are providing tax intensive incentives are provided, tax incentives, and what happens? Obviously, there is impact on revenue of the government. Either ultimately, what happens when incentives are given, revenue will depreciate. Correct. So, what is the statement? What is the loss that our government has undergone because of the incentives given for the people? Next, profile, expenditure profile. So this is again aggregate information about revenue, expenditure, and revenue receipts. So this is once you can just read it. Okay. Next, expenditure profile. It speaks about international contributions, gender budgeting, and schemes for child welfare. Okay. Next, public sector enterprise. So public sector enterprise, what are the amount allotted for public sector enterprises? So commercial bodies, especially railways, what is the amount allotted for it? Please read the slides once. I'm just running through the slides as we can't explain each and everything. Defense services estimates. This is very important, right? Most of the share of our tax amount goes to defense. Budget at glance. Next, memorandum explaining provisions of finance bill, and it includes tax proposals. What are the tax proposals that you have? Next, output outcome monitoring framework, which specifically focuses on more than 500 crores schemes. And last one is key feature of budget document. It is a bird's eye view. Bird's view. It's like bird's view. It is giving overall picture from A to J. A to J. A to J. It is giving the complete information. Next, implementation of budget announcement of the previous budget. See, previous budget, whether you have implemented it or not, status of implementation. Okay, what are the announcement made in the previous budget speech? Okay, so this is all about key budget documents. So concluding, we discussed about key budget documents and what are the documents that we have. As you can see, these are the documents that we have. In that, A, B, C, D are very important 4 documents. Apart from that, E to L, all those things are supportive documents. Okay, and that in one point you have to keep in your mind that there are 2 types of demand for grants: quoted and charged. Okay, so fine. I hope you got the clarity about budget documents. Thank you. Meet you in the next video.